Watcher. In today's video I will be showing how to subdivide and count in unusual time signatures, such as 5-4, 5-8, 7-4, and 7-8. For those of you unfamiliar or unsure about time signatures, here is a brief explanation. Skip to the time signature on screen if you already know about them. Time signatures explain how many beats are in a measure. In Western music it is represented by a fraction. The top number explains how many beats there are in a measure, while the bottom number explains which note gets the beat. The most common time signature is 4-4. In 4-4, there is 4 beats in a measure, as explained by the top 4, and the quarter note gets the beat, as explained by the bottom 4. A 1 on the bottom would mean that a whole note will get the beat, however I have never seen it in a piece of music. A 2 on the bottom means a half note will get the beat, the most common example being 2-2 a cut time. A 4 means a quarter note, as said before. 8 means an 8 note, 16 means a 16th note, and so on. Now that the concept behind time signatures is established, I will go into the concept of groupings. The easiest example to explain groupings is 3-4 time versus 6-8 time. Although the two time signatures may seem the same, with both of them containing 3 quarter notes, they are not. In 3-4 time, each grouping consists of 3 quarter notes, or a measure. This is shown in Dmitri Shostakovich's Waltz No. 2. Meanwhile, 6-8 time is divided into groups of 3/8 notes, or 2 dotted quarter notes. A famous example of 6-8 time is for Elise by Ludwig van Beethoven. Now that we have the basics out of the way, let's hop into our first complex time signature. 5-4. 90% of songs in 5-4 are divided the same way. 2 dotted quarter notes followed by 2 normal quarter notes. For simplification, many people call the 2 dotted quarter notes the long beats, while the 2 quarter notes are the short beats. The most famous example of 5-4 time is the theme to Mission Impossible. The best way to count 5-4 when it is divided into 2 long notes and 2 short notes is to divide a measure into 10/8 notes. The long notes should be counted as 1, 2, 3, while the short notes should be counted as 1, 2. Here is a simple example of this subdivision. This method of counting seems to perform much better than its contemporaries. Counting a measure by quarter notes, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is really confusing. The rhythm falls on the first beat, the end of 2, the fourth beat, and the fifth beat. The choice of words for each beat also matters. When subdivided into 10/8 notes, I do not suggest counting the long notes 1, 2, 3, and the short notes 1 and 2, and counting like this can lead to a shift back into 4/4 time. Because triplets are also counted 1, 2, 3, and 8 notes are counted 1, and you may be tricked into thinking the long notes are triplets because you are counting the rhythm of 2 triplets followed by 2 8 notes. Here's an example. Because our brains are used to doing things in 4/4 and occasionally 3/4 time, it is quite awkward playing in 5/4 time. If you are not alert, you may find yourself slipping into 4/4 time from 5/4 time by forgetting the last quarter note. Here is an example. The next obscure time signature is 5/8 time. I think this is the least used time signature on this list because I have found no compositions using it. Therefore, these subdivisions are only guesses which I have logically deduced. The first division is 2/8 notes followed by 3/8 notes, or a quarter note followed by a dotted quarter note. Here's an example. Five-eighths can also be divided into a 3/8 notes followed by 2/8 notes, or a dotted quarter note followed by a quarter note. It is the reverse of the previous example. The following divisions all consist of 2 quarter notes and an 1/8 note. However, the order of these 3 rhythms changes. The first one is 2 quarter notes followed by an 1/8 note. The second one is a quarter note followed by an 1/8 note followed by a quarter note. The final one is an 1/8 note followed by a quarter note. Here are some examples. The main caution for playing in 5/8 time is to not add an extra 8th note onto the end and slip into 3/4 or 6/8 time. The penultimate time signature on this list is 7/4. There are 3 main subdivisions for this time signature. The first 2 are 3/4 notes followed by 4/4 notes, and the reverse, or 4/4 notes followed by 3/4 notes. Counting these 2 rhythms is fairly simple. For the former, count 1, 2, 3, then 1, 2, 3, 4. For the latter, count 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3. An example of the latter is Fish by Squire, also known as Schindleria Prematurus. The last subdivision of 7/4, and probably my favorite division in this entire video, is dividing each measure of 7/4 into 3.5/4 notes, or 7/8 notes. The emphasis falls on the 3/4 notes and the last 8th note. An example of this division is I'm the Doctor from Doctor Who. I suggest counting each quarter note as 1, and while the last 3/8 notes should be counted as 3 and A. Even though this method seems to not place emphasis on the final 8th note, it works better than 3 and 4. The latter counting method makes it easier to shift back into 4/4 time, which is why I prefer the former. Here is I'm the Doctor marked with this method of counting. The final strange time signature is 7/8. Similar to 7/4, it can be divided 4 beats then 3 beats or 3 beats then 4 beats. An example of the former is the theme from Tron. Seven 8 also has its own unique subdivision, which divides it into a dotted quarter note followed by 2 normal quarter notes. An example of this is Another World of Beasts from Final Fantasy VI. I hope this video helped you understand these time signatures better. Like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to support future content. And thank you all for watching.